Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. Basketball Rewind, of course. Like, subscribe, of course. I am joined today to talk about not Nurse, not anything, not three, not four, not five, but prospects. Today, we're going to be talking about Anthony Black. And so we are going to talk about everything from his defense, his offense, his playmaking, and a few other things about him beyond the fact that he is Nick Smith Jr.'s not roommate, but teammate. So, with that being said, I'm going to start off by talking about Anthony Black's bio. He is at this time, as far as I know, 19, almost 19 and a half years old. Again, ignore the wingspan stuff, but from what I hear, he does have a plus size wingspan. So he is 6'7". He should have at least a 6'10". Some people are suggesting that it might be closer to 7 foot wingspan, so to speak. And so, from that perspective, he has gained or at least garnered a lot of attention and comparisons to a certain person who can't walk on the Chicago Bulls in Lonzo Ball. Seems like a Raptor-esque player to me. So, with that being said, I don't know which one of you wants to start talking about his offense, but I can go into some of his numbers before we do that. So, very quickly, he shot 13 points a game. He was a good rebounder, 5 rebounds a game. He did have a good assist number, healthy at 4, which was propped up by the fact that Nick Smith Jr., who was probably supposed to be close to the point guard on that team, was spent a lot of the team's year injured. And so he had to become the primary ball distributor. With that being said, 45% from the field. Here's where the ouch happens: is he shot about 30% from three. So not great from three, and he did have a high turnover number, but I will get into that later. Do any of you want to take a crack at talking about his offense first?
I like his size. I like the 6'7" point guard body, and I say that because our team, the Raptors, they need a bigger guard coming into next season. The offense from Anthony Black, I think he's a high IQ player. I think that he's able to get to the rim. He's a very good athlete, and he's able to create his own shot a little bit because of his size and stuff like that. I find with his offense, it's not so much him scoring that stands out. It's kind of how he's able to create for others and be able to use his size in mismatches too as well. Um, he is going to be someone who I think will go top 10 in this draft. I don't know if he'll be available at 13. From all the mocks, that teams do seem to like his size, the ability to create for others. Um, I'm just looking at some of his numbers here as well on the year, and I'm seeing like 13.5 rebounds, 4 assists. So kind of he's one of those jack of all trades. He does everything fairly well. In terms of, I think you had said, Kenyon, him splitting time with Nick Smith at the guard position. I don't know if that was a fit that was good for either player, truthfully. I think if anything, it probably hurts both in the how scouts or teams might see them. I'm curious to see if they were just by themselves or had a different fit next to them, what they would look like then, because they're almost two of the same player to a degree. I think Black is better defensively,
Mhm.
and I think Anthony Black is probably stronger too. Like he's able to absorb more contact when he's going up for shots. So I like Anthony Black as a prospect. Not sure if I like him for this team though. As much as I want to get size at the guard position, I don't know if that's him. But if that we were to draft him, he becomes our best point of attack defender right away.
Beyond?
I think his coach kind of summed it up, quite well as always. I think his offense is limited at the moment from a standpoint of like he's not a three-level scorer at this point. I don't think anyone will say so. You then start asking yourself, okay, if I'm looking at it from a Raptors perspective, I mean, his skill set and Scotty's are almost like identical. It's like fingerprint matches at this point. So like it's like where would he actually fit in? Because he's the guy who has to have the ball in his hands at the moment. He likes to work for a mid-range post up. I like a posting up guard, so I'm all for that. But I don't think you, based on the guys you have already, they're obviously better post up players. To have him come in there to say, "Oh, let me command post up," not likely going to happen. His ability in this case here, like the size is great, but that 3-point shot. I mean, right now I'm thinking like this is interesting because I was thinking of him as like you think of someone like Dyson Daniels, right? Who's a similar type of comp in some ways in this case here, and he was rumored in potential packages for the Raptors. And one of the things that was always a bit of a concern for me was, yeah, I like the talent in this case here, but the issue was, okay, how is he with the shooting when it's all said and done? It doesn't mean he can't be a good shooter, but obviously some of the things we've discussed before when it comes to the Raptors and the development, it would concern me if we could actually get a guy to become a better shooter than what he already is at this point. Because right now we haven't really seen right now the rewards of that yet with the young players we have right now. So I do think he has a lot of positive. His physicality I do like. His athleticism, as coach said, is fantastic. He can get the hoop, which we do need that. The Raptors need a guy to get the hoop. So there's some positives. I mean, maybe I'm a little more kinder than maybe you guys thought, but I think there's positives. But there's just that, I remember Bill Simmons saying this one time. And it's a very great quote from him referring to Westbrook. So everybody's got 10% everybody doesn't like for a player. But Westbrook's 10% is so obvious that it sometimes forget all the 90% of stuff he does do well. Black is, I think, a player looks like that right now. He does so much other stuff well, but that 10% is so glaring that you just can't get it out your head sometimes. So I think that's my concern with him. He's gonna get ranked because very highly, probably in the top 10, maybe even the top 8, perhaps, because he's that the idea of that size and that type of physicality, and he's got good vision. The passing, I'm not sure yet. The one other thing I have concern about, just going back to some of the bigger games late in the season, I found there's times where he just disappears in the game. I mean, the game they got eliminated, I think I barely heard his name about twice in about a 10, 15-minute span. It's like he was out there. It's like, is he out there? Oh, yeah, he is out there. Like, that concerns me if you're that quiet in this case here, and that kind of passive. So I think from a personality standpoint, from a player personality standpoint, that would concern me as well, too.
Yeah, I think that those are all really good points. I'll just go through the notes that I really made. So obviously he's a larger player, especially for a guard. One thing that we didn't really talk about, I mean, I think you kind of lightly touched on it accidentally, but it's the fact that yes, he attacks at times, but for as a result of that, he's able to draw a lot of free throws. And that was actually something that's been unique out of all the prospects that we've kind of looked at so far. So if you compare him to a guy like Gigi Jackson, who we've talked about, Gigi would fall in love with the jumper. That's not necessarily Anthony Black. He does, as you said, he provides a lot of rim pressure, and we need that. And as a larger player, he is able to be almost too large for smaller guards to handle him, and yet too fast for. He's too large for smaller players and too fast for the larger players who would guard him. And for that reason, he shot, I think, 64% at the rim at times throughout this season. And I think that there is, in a good way and in a bad way, there is a very obvious way for him to reach his full potential, which is he needs to expand his range. I would actually say, based on what I saw from an offensive standpoint, he comes in with better handles than Scotty Barnes, although obviously I think Scotty is probably a much better passer than he was coming in. He is a very, very, very strong, high IQ player on the offensive end, and I think at times he had these creative reads. They call him one of the best connective tissue passers, and I'll quickly just go and put the Ringer NBA thing on the screen right now. But they called him one of the best connective tissue passers. I say he's probably a top 3 secondary playmaker coming into any sort of NBA team in terms of this class this year. So I think that there's something there, but as you guys have hinted at, he's very redundant. And I also think that you have two guys who are very cerebral, who would want to see the floor in a particular way. Barnes has a tendency to be sometimes turnover prone, because he does have very advanced reads, but I don't think he quite knows. He's still figuring things
how
out.
to execute them exactly.
Exactly, and that's fine. It comes with time. I mean, that's what made Kyle Lowry good later on, is that he would have these crazy, slip a pass on a short roll, and you're like, how the heck did he make that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he started doing it early on. So I'm not, worried about that. But how many guys like that can you afford to have and develop at the same time? That's a good question in terms of an offensive fit and standpoint. I'll let Coach go, and then we'll go switch over to defense after that.
Well, as I watch what games I've watched of Anthony Black this year play with Arkansas and some film and stuff like that, the shooting form, it's too slow.
Mm.
And when he shoots, it's almost like both hands go this way.
That push, yeah.
It's a bit of a push. Now, no, to each their own. I mean, we've seen funkier forms in the NBA before. I just worry about the release. I worry about how quickly he's going to be able to get his shot off. Because a guy like Scotty, for example, I've been saying for a year, his form is too slow right now. It's got to speed up, and it did a little bit towards the end of the year, which was encouraging to see. With Anthony Black, it's the same thing. And I think, Kenyon, you pointed towards it. It's the redundancy. Anthony Black, he'd be a great fit like on Philadelphia, like a defensive point of attack. He's got shooters all around him. I think Anthony Black in the right situation will look really good. In our situation right now, I just don't see it on offense anyway.
Yeah, he was playing like a Draymond role in Golden State.
Yeah.
Right. Like I just think, and also here's the thing with him that makes it so confounding a little bit, because I think of all the players that we're going to discuss, he has, if he, say for example, if he came into the combine in this case here and he's shooting lights out from three or long distance, long twos even, he's at the highest ceiling to go up in the draft than any other player, because he's got all the physical attributes everyone's salivating for in this NBA, right?
Yep.
And so if he ever came in there and all of a sudden turned from a 30% 3-point shooter, and all of a sudden the combine shooting at 36%, then you're gonna watch some things start changing really fast in that lottery all of a sudden. And all of a sudden he's gonna become very tempting for a lot of teams that are a little higher up. So he has the highest growth, I think, as far as where he can go. But yeah, I think that's the thing with him, is just like, and I said before, that passivity issue concerns me a lot. And I think we got too many guys already with that type of persona. And as I said before, I want someone a little more dog in them, man. If I want to just get direct, I just want a guy with a little more dog.
Yeah, I think that those are all good points. And really quickly, just because, again, he has been compared on the Ringer to Lonzo Ball. And I see it, actually. It was one of the first things that I thought about when I saw him as well. But with that being said, looking at Lonzo Ball's, stats from college, you realize how underrated Lonzo Ball has become by comparison. I mean, no offense to Anthony Black, but wow, I couldn't remember Lonzo Ball being a really great shooter in college, but he shot 40%. So I'm going to focus on the passing aspect. So the advanced numbers say that he had an assist rate at about 21%, just under that. And that's pretty solid considering he had 20% usage. Now, by comparison, Lonzo Ball had 30. Which is a significant difference on lower usage, actually, 18% usage. He took care of the ball at a very similar rate, so 20 versus 18%. The edge going there to Lonzo Ball, being less turnover prone. But where his advantage really comes is his ability to generate steals. 3.4% of the time he's generating steals. And there's one guy that we will talk about on a different time, on a different episode, who, in my opinion, is able to beat that and beat that at a better rate. So to use that as a jumping off point to talk about his point of attack defense, he is one of the better point of attack defenders in this draft, and it is not very close. He also is able to use his length you know, to basically intercept passes on the passing lanes with regularity. He's pretty good at closing out on guys because of his defense and because of his length. And then also I noticed that he tends to, some people call it almost like the Matisse Thybulle effect, where you'll let a guy pass you, but he is able to stick to the guy's hips and use his length to stop to stop the shot. The one thing sorry, this is kind of like bad form, but I forgot to mention that he is both a good cutter, but he's also good at recognizing cuts as well. And then finally, as a guard, he was pretty impressive as a weak side rim protector. That's again something that we don't really have. I don't know if that's not something that we need on this team, but it's something that we don't have. So those are my thoughts on his defense.
I'll jump in here. I think, the on the ball defense is really a great trait that is really something that's rare in this case, in this day and age. Like, people don't put it as an emphasis. So if you could find a guy who can actually have that type of talent to do that, that is really something that probably is what's elevated into the position he's at right now in the lottery from that perspective. I think of him from a physical standpoint in defense, and I'm not saying he's this guy as far as a player. I'm just thinking about, if you just think of the type, and just for my Raptor fans out there, if you think of like Jeff Doughton, a much more physically talented Jeff Doughton, as far as like how Doughton could get in the lanes and kind of like just like he's just crawling all over the dude when he's like coming up the court. Like Anthony Black's like that, even a bit bigger. So he's an imposing figure. So I can see your mouth waters from that standpoint if you're a defensive coach, or even just you're trying to put your schemes together, and the amount of pressure he puts on that in the passing lane. So he has the ability to come back and block shots too. In this case, being a big guard, you could probably play him in about at least 3 positions. You can play against the other 2 guards, other 3s, maybe in the right line. You can play against a power forward, perhaps as well too. So there's ways that he play different positions. Maybe point guards he can chase around as well too. So he can move him around a lot of different pieces. As a chess piece. So from that standpoint, that whole Arkansas team was a very good defensive team. And he definitely was like the spear in this case here throughout the season. So to tip the spear, I think he is. I said before, I think he's a guy that I can see. You can make the argument and justify the argument why you should pick him in a top 10 or even top 8 with just that alone. I get that, but going back to everyone else, I think right now, shooting right now to me has to be the priority on this team. So if a guy's a little less as an on-ball defender, but he's a much better shooter, I am more leaning towards that in this case overall. But overall, that from a prospect standpoint, I don't know. I mean, there might be someone we talk to, coming up soon that might be, rival him when it comes to being an on-ball defender. But he's damn good. That's all I'll say.
And for Anthony Black, and I always like to take a look at defensive win shares whenever I look at a player whose strength might be playing defense. Like of the top 30 players, I think the first round, the end of the first round, that's kind of a bit of an argument who you put in there. Like he's top 5. That includes centers. Like Brandon Miller has been measured out to be the top because we don't know really what Wembanyama or Scoot's numbers are in terms of that, because I don't know if they calculate that. But when you see a guard who's in the top 5 in defensive win shares, because usually those numbers come to 4s and 5s. They usually get the higher ones. So his defense is certainly intriguing from that standpoint. I mean, he averaged per 36 minutes a little over 2 steals a game. It's pretty good. And I think Kenyon had mentioned something. I somewhat touched on it earlier as well, in terms of the usage rate with him and Lonzo, how Lonzo had a higher usage rate than Black. With Black, he was paired next to Nick Smith. And that's why the fit there, I'm kind of wondering, did that help him or hurt him, his game?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that it hurt him because it's like his game grew. His game did grow when Nick Smith was hurt, right?
Yeah.
So we know that what he got that brought in his game at that point, and I think that's one of the things that hurt them in actually going back to the actual NCAA in the March Madness. That now you're trying to figure out things again now, and you're trying to now play for a championship, and now you're trying to figure out who's doing what. And neither guy looked great in that tournament in this case here. And I think that was part of the problem. Was like okay, now we're like, okay, it's like one thing is like, okay, now we're new roommates again. How do we deal with the chores? I don't know. You do this. I'm gonna take out the garbage. No, you take out the garbage. No one knew what to do, what to do in this case here, and it's important. They didn't help any guy because both guys, I didn't hear anything about them during the game in this case here. They relied a lot on their front court players to carry the load, which I don't think for the most part the times they saw this throughout the year was exactly the way they played, throughout the year. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting and fascinating where both guys end up.
Definitely. And finally, I'll just say this. I didn't mention his defensive box plus minus numbers. They were identical to Lonzo's. The main difference is Lonzo was just a more well-rounded offensive player, and a really, really
You
like
know,
his passing was
I
miles
don't
ahead.
want I want to put you in the spot, and I'm not asking this, but I would be curious to see what his looked like with Marcus Smart in college.
That's a good question. I'm gonna look it up very, very quickly.
Because when I
Um,
see a lot of Smart when I see him
so I'm
defensively.
I'm just gonna focus on the so the shooting numbers are very similar. First of all, I'm going to just ignore the free throw numbers for now because that's whatever. PER, Marcus Smart was he's has him. So we'll focus on the box plus minus. Marcus Smart had so Lonzo Ball and Anthony Black both had 3.9 defensive box plus minus. Here's the thing. I'm trying to be nice here because I do like Anthony Black actually. Marcus Smart was way ahead.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at
Uh,
it now.
his final one was 5.5.
I know he can play. I'm just saying, I'm curious to see where if you can see him like that. Yeah, Marcus Smart was a beast in
Gotcha.
college. I'm curious to see what it looked like because I mean, obviously, Smart was a way more better advanced offensive player in college than he was. But like
Yes.
defensively is where I was wondering where it sat in this case, a defensive standpoint. You know,
Kenny,
But
are you
this,
looking at his freshman numbers or
I'm
sophomore
looking
numbers
at
for
his
Smart?
the I guess the sophomore numbers.
Okay.
Even his
Yeah.
steal percentage was 5, which is
and that's
crazy.
why that's it ends up making you defensive player of the year, folks. Eventually,
Marcus Smart was well ahead of his peers from a
and those are
defensive
two damn good
standpoint.
defensive guards in college, Lonzo Ball and Anthony Black.
Yeah.
Yes, like you look at some of these guys, and again, this is not to diss this class or anything like that. It's just you look at some of these guys and you realize it's like, wow, like I didn't watch Marcus Smart in college, back in the day, but then you look at some of the stuff now, or you go back to the summer league and you're like, okay, wow, like the signs were there in hindsight. It's
Yeah.
and that right now through this process has helped me to like better look at prospects as well as like looking
Yeah.
back at guys
And
and
I
just
won't. We had a discussion about this the other day. When it came from a trade standpoint, and that's the reason why I mentioned about this, especially this upper echelon of this class. I was like, well,
yes.
let's slow down, guys.
Yes, which we will actually we'll
Yeah.
definitely have to talk about that closer to maybe when the lottery shakes out and we finally
Mhm.
get this is where the Raptors are for sure, and this is where all the other teams are, which is also gonna impact what happens with the Raptors, I think. So just to really quickly cap this conversation off, this was a shorter conversation, of course, but in my opinion, for my final thoughts before we get to the rest. I think that he comes in as a project on the offensive end for sure. But there are two main areas. He's learning how to harness his passing, and he did expand that. It was a growth in his game, even though it didn't look pretty all the time. I think that it was a major growth area. And I think he can learn under the right system how to taper down his turnovers really, really well. But he does need to expand his range, and that's the key thing. Any final thoughts for you guys?
I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think right now, like that's really his range is what's stopping him from being probably a top 3, 4 pick in this draft right now. And honestly, I think that's what
Yeah.
it is. I think everything else you mentioned there, his ability to get in the hoop, his physicality, his size, the length and the wingspan, the defensive measures that we talk about, like metrics, like he's got all the other stuff pretty much. It's just like that component. And as coach has said many a times, man, this league is about shooting more and more. Like you just can't get away. This ain't the '90s anymore, man. You just can't get away with a guy just like hitting a wild jump shot once in a while, just kind of scrapping for rebounds and putbacks. Like that ain't gonna get it. Like, it's not gonna do it in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean There's so much I want to discuss. I mean, we will definitely discuss these things, but there's so much that I want to discuss with you guys about, roster construction and shooting. But we'll definitely get into it at some point. Coach, any final thoughts on Anthony Black?
Elite in the pick and roll. I think he is. I think he's very good. I think he's good at finding open men, especially in transition. I mean, how many games did we watch this year? We're just like, oh man, I wish we had someone in transition who could pass the ball, who willingly will pass the ball. Anthony Black does that. He's a very good point of attack defender, good size. The biggest thing from Anthony Black, really, to me, is his offense, but more so the form. Like Kenyon said, the range and stuff like that, because it's too slow the form right now. And I do think though, if he's with the right team, a la a Golden State, a Philly, um, just a team that shoots the ball fairly well, maybe even like an Indiana or something like that, might be a decent fit there with Halliburton because Halliburton can shoot, right? It's a nice size in their backcourt. I think in the right system, he could be a good piece for them.
And just to mention about funky forms in this case, it's funny you mentioned Halliburton and Lonzo, right?
Oh,
Discussion.
What is it with these guys in their form?
Is it pretty but effective?
It's not quite as bad as the Matrix, I'll say. So,
that's my boy right there. But boy, it wasn't pretty.
I mean, if it's effective,
it worked.
it's effective.
Exactly.
So yeah, with that being said, that brings a close to this specific discussion on this prospect. But stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe. And like I said, if you have anyone that you're interested in or excited about, in terms of or even if your thoughts have changed since going and watching the playoffs so far, definitely let me know down below. And when I do have the time, I will definitely respond to those comments, and we will definitely try to cover it, whether it's myself or me joined by other people. Of course, I would always love to be joined. I'm pointing the other way because it's mirrored by these two right here. So yeah, with that being said, take care, everyone, and hope you enjoyed talking about Anthony Black. Peace. Okay.